I'm not good at anything else. So, I mean, these three can't say that. But all I ever really liked were books growing up. And then when I got a little older than that, I wanted to make them.
Yeah, I think that's kind of probably true for all of us on some level. Like, in my parents' house, it would just be books everywhere books. And they read a lot, and I wanted to be like them. So I read a lot. And I think, like, when you're a kid, it starts with, like, oh, I'm getting attention from this thing that I do. But then it becomes, like, solace. And then it just becomes craft. So you stick with it.
I think there were, like, a lot of things that I was trying to figure out when I was young that I didn't have the language for. And I was introduced to poetry, and, like, for the first time, things that I was thinking about that I'd, like, never seen anyone articulate was, like, showing up in these narratives. Like, someone would just give me a poetry book, and then suddenly somebody was talking about race and, like, violence in this very particular way that I'd never seen it before. So I think I started writing because, like, I needed a language to talk about those things, and poetry gave me that language, and then it became, like, a craft of language, which I'm, like, grateful for.
I started, I guess, writing creatively because I was, like, being bullied in middle school, and I needed, like, an outlet to kind of, because I wasn't, like, a fighter, so I just needed an outlet to, like, get, like, my feelings out. So that's how it, like, really started for me. And then I just kept on doing it, and then I wrote about other stuff other than myself, and I found myself liking that. Like, I always liked reading and stuff, but I don't know if I, like, really had, like, a drive for reading until I, like, got into, like, high school. It was, like, reading different stuff. Yeah. I can't remember the first. It was probably a sign about me beating up a bully in a very violent way. No, it was pretty bad. Like, I used to write some, like, demonic stuff.
My first poem was a really, really, really problematic poem that I wrote in high school about people of color. I thought that I was inspirational. Like, I was like, get up, like, we can do things, we can change the world, like, stop shooting each other and buying drugs. And now I know why that was really, really bad poem, and I'm really happy that I only read it once. And then I read that poem, one of my teachers was like, you ever heard of Poetry Slam? I was like, no. And she was like, you might want to hear Poetry Slam. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I never wrote a poem like that again because I found Poetry Slam. So.
Yo, valid. I was 9, and I was in 5th grade, and we had just moved to this, I just changed this new school that was, like, for all intents and purposes, pretty whack. And, like, I was bored in class all the time. And my mom, so, like, when other black women in the community would look at my hair and be like, oh, she got that good hair, your daughter has that good hair. And my mom, being the brilliant woman she is, would always be like, excuse me, what are you talking about? Can you unpack that? And they would just be like, I mean, you know, you can't really say anything. And so I was bored in class, and I wrote this poem about hair, and I showed it to my mom, and she was really happy. Yeah.
Mine is really nerdy. When I was in the 7th grade, we were reading the Iliad in my English class, like an abridged version of the Iliad, obviously.
Excuse me.
And and our assignment was to write a poem based on one of the chapters. So I chose the chapter where he lands on that island and meets the princess. I think it started with an N. It sounds like Nautica, but it wasn't. Nausicaa, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So then there was going to be like an assembly later in the week on ancient Greek culture, and whoever wrote the best poem in class was going to read theirs at the assembly. So first of all, my poem was like 4 pages long. The entire thing rhymed because I had bars. And yeah, I like really had a lot to say about, you know, my man Ulysses.
My man Ulysses.
I read at the assembly.
You know, that double S. That double S.
Speaking for me, I was just looking to make friends. Like, I was always friends with Camonghne. Like, me and Camonghne were like always tight from like when she was on the we were on the urban word team, And like I remember like we just being like in urban words, just talking about the stuff we wanted to do in poetry, and this is like we were super duper ambitious.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I'm glad that we got it together, yo. But like we like personally, like I just wanted to like make friends. So I like started like hanging out like with Safia, like going to NYU to their slams and stuff. And then like through Safia, like I met Aziza. And I don't know how we all like kind of came together, but like it just, I don't know, it just happened where we were just like.
We got the name first, right?
Yeah, we got the name first.
Yeah.
Was it Ghostface Blog?
Yeah. We used to all come together.
So there was Ghostface Killer blog, right?
But it wasn't
Until
really
we found
him.
out that a white man wrote all that stuff, but at the time it was Ghostface.
It was a beautiful
You mean
time.
Big Ghostface?
Yes.
No.
That's where the name comes from.
Yeah, dog.
Yeah, Big Ghost, yeah.
dog. But we would read that joint religiously, right?
Yeah.
And he would refer to his clothes as divine fabrics, right?
Yeah.
And that mess was very
Hilarious.
important.
No,
Very
hilarious.
Hilarious.
mad critical.
Shout out in here in my Devon fabrics. Yes, sir.
We were like big ghosts. Met Mega through all things through Sean B. Everything kind of like all roads lead to, you know, whatever, Venice or some shit. Like all things happen through Sean B. But then it was like, I don't know. It just seemed like there needed to be a space for like to be black and fly
And weird.
and weird and like, you know, and to be adventurous and vigorous in your writing. Particularly vigorous, particularly like right, like no compromises, like I don't know. It just we were hearing a lot of things and we were like, but something, I'm still not here somehow. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a space for me, but I need to chisel it a little bit more. And it was always inspiring to hear their work and be around their work. And like it's wonderful when you love people more than just as people, but when you love like the way their minds work, like that's an intimacy that I feel like very few people are allowed. And we're allowed that, which is like just a blessing. And I would come up with like a weird thing, and instead of like, man, that's weird, it'd be like, that's it! And so we would all run to it like, that's it! And so then we started doing like a couple shows at the Bowery, and then like, I think my favorite one was the one we did last June, where we were just like,
The chandelier.
yeah, with the chandeliers and like invited, it was packed, and we like months ahead, we were like, we gotta write a whole new set. And I just, who does that, you know? Like you're 2 months out the gate, you already know like the set that you could have, but you're like, nah, but this has to be fresh. And because, and I think that's why we continue to be, you know, like wherever we started being, I don't even know like the exact point, but just the fact that we can all agree like, nah, but it has to be something more, it has to be something different. And it has to be sharp, like, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, for years at this point, these are like my favorite minds to be around, and also hands down my favorite people to talk about poetry with. You know, like we can geek out over like a line break in someone's poem, it like at the same level, and that you know it's beautiful, and there is no like why. Like it's just a line break. Why does it mean so much to you? There's none of that here. You know, where we completely understand why, like we take. I know why, like we love poetry as such a like. I take it really personally when a poem is good. You know, and like I want to share it with them when I see a poem that I love. I want to like share it with these guys. And I think that it's just been a really beautiful space to make work in too, because I know we get excited at the same level about like similar craft-based things, and it's nice to have people like be nerdy with. You know?
And I think like I think that like growing up in this like scene, like in the poetry like world, and knowing so many different people and seeing so many different images and like ways of being, I think like one of the gifts that you can get from like being a person who is around so many people is like being able to find your people, like your people. And I think like, you know, in a craft like poetry where it's like you're thinking like, you know, you think as much as you write, and you write as much as you think, and you're ideating as much as you're creating, and like all that stuff. I think it's like super important to be able to like do that with your people. And so I think like more than anything, like we needed to create divine fabric so that we could like continue to do what we came to poetry to do with people that we loved a lot. just sort of like an insulator, right? Like just your ability to be like, I know that these people are challenging, right? Like I know that the work that they expect is challenging. I also know that they're like challenging people in the sense that they're going to challenge like my person, right? Like make me love myself, which means that like my writing's gonna get better and I'm gonna think about different things and on and on and on. So I think it definitely had a lot to do with sort of just like knowing that these folk have their best interests at heart, and then in turn mine, and just sort of like.
Yeah, I think just to add is another piece. Like we were all just bonded by like this hunger, like something more
to be good.
Yeah, we were just bonded by this hunger. Like I remember like just talking with Camonghne about Camonghne when we didn't know what like all of that like really entailed. Right. And like everybody thought it was like I thought it was like this fairy tale like dreamland thing for like black poets.
Still Black Olympus.
It's like Black Disneyland.
Yeah, like I remember like talking about like having conversations like about that with, like Camonghne and stuff like that. And like, now to see that we're like going to these fellowships and like getting into these MFA programs and the things of that nature, it's like wow. Like
and like the only people who looks at my applications are these guys. The only people who give us feedback, like they're the ones who look at our cover letters. Like we all, and what's so crazy is that like. Even though, like, yes, like, especially on camera right now, like, we are Divine Fabrics Collective, like, a collective who performs and, like, brings you good work and all that stuff. But aside from that, though, like, me, Aziza, and another one of our friends were, like, in a Camonghne workshop together. These two were our Camonghne fellows of the same year, right? Or, like, a year, working together. These two went to Kalaloo together. Like, it's just, we do so many.
We two did our MFA
together. Like we are growing at the same rate and are like taking the same steps, and it's so great to just like see your reflection in your friends, right? To just be like, look at their greatness. Oh, that's me.
Yeah. Awesome. As we slowly take over.
Still tricking people with fashion. Yes.
Still tricking people with fashion. That's what you really need to know about Divine Fabrics, right? You look at us and you're like, yo, these some fly motherfuckers.
Yeah, that's okay.
And we are that people. Mother people. And we are some fly mother people. But beyond that, the pen is OD. Like the pen is hotter than anything we get. My shoes cost mad money. The pen costs more than that. I just want to keep it 100. That's really real. Okay, we should move on to the next question. All right.